Welcome to Identity Unboxed, where we provide mentorship and promote representation for Black professionals in the advancement of the Black community.
We are seeking guidance from exceptional Black leaders, scholars, and professionals with expertise in their respective fields.
We hope to foster a space that promotes authenticity, inclusivity, and restoration for our listeners while exploring the intersection of our personal and professional lives.
This project is a culmination of our lived experiences as young Black professionals to transform our life trajectories, to overcome adversity, and reach triumph.
Our intention is to inspire you on your path to discovering your purpose.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Alicia, on this episode of Identity Unboxed, breaking down the law, educating the masses through content creation. You're a criminal defense attorney, an advocate, and content creator, and through your content, you've been able to educate the masses in a way that adds a touch of your own personality and humor, and we're just really grateful to have you here today. I've been following you since like 2020, and it's amazing to see how you've grown and what you've been able to accomplish.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's wild. It's always cool to meet your mutuals because we'll follow each other on social media, but never talk in real life. So I'm just excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Yes, so we can get into our first question. After graduating law school in 2015, you began your career in immigration law, advocating for families navigating complex legal cases before moving into criminal defense. You've since gained over a decade of experience as an attorney and built a reputable name for yourself in your field. And we were wondering if you could share what initially sparked your interest in the legal field and how it shaped your journey toward obtaining a law degree.
Oh my gosh, that is so fun. Whenever I hear that, I'm like 2015, that's crazy. It's a decade ago. It's 2025 right now. I don't
Isn't
even know
that
how y'all
crazy?
found that information. It's crazy. And it's this is a tangent, but too sometimes people ask me, they're like, do you have any tips for law school? I'm like, girl, not really. That was a decade ago. Like I cannot help you. Like it's very different now. I have very limited advice, but of course, being black in the space, I can speak to that. That's unfortunately remained the same because the number is not really increasing, but we can get into that later. But as far as my inspiration going to law school, so I think I was majoring in like philosophy. No, I was majoring in theater at first in undergrad. And basically, the same thing a lot of other parents, especially if you have minority parents, they're like, but you need a job when you graduate. And so my mom was like, that's cute, but you can't major in theater because you're going to be unemployed. And we didn't send you down to that school to not have a job. So I'm like, okay, what else can I major in? I majored in philosophy. I was double majoring in philosophy and Spanish. And my philosophy teacher was like, yeah, I mean, you can either become a philosophy teacher. You can't really be a philosopher. That's not really like a job that you can do. He was like, or you can go to law school. And I was like, okay. So then I started looking into law school and that was literally it. Cause I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And Spanish teacher as well, but I didn't want to be a teacher because even back then, what I'm saying, the pay for teachers just has always been kind of low. It's sad because they're so important, but it's just that's been a consistent through line, like just been devalued. And so I was like, okay, well, I want to maybe do something. I like theater, I like performance, and everybody was like, oh, it's perfect for you. And I love to read, so I love reading. Always been a voracious reader, and so it kind of combined all these things that I thought I would have a skill set to do, and so started studying for the LSAT, the entrance test for law school. I think my junior year probably. So I studied for a while. I think I took it like at the beginning of my senior year. And I'm born and raised in Georgia. And so this is so naive and kind of stupid, but the University of Georgia was my dream school. It's just because, it's like a big state school. So when you're from your state, you're just like, oh, I want to go. Like, oh, I should have been thinking like Harvard, you know what I'm saying? I was talking to my mom and she was like, girl, like you can go out of the state, Cornell, like anywhere you want to go to the University of Georgia. But, that's where I wanted to go. So when I got admitted into that school, I'm like, yeah, this is where I'm going. Plus in-state tuition. So I knew that it wouldn't be as expensive and I wouldn't be in as much debt. So yeah, but it really, some people are like, they wanted to be a lawyer their entire lives. That was not my story. I was just trying to figure out what I can do, what aligns with my skill set. But then I got there and I loved it. I loved a portion of it. I love the litigation part. I love mock trial, moot court, and I love talking to people and I guess just serving, being of service to other people. And so it all worked out.
Love that so much. And it really makes sense that you initially majored in theater because of your career now, seeing how you've been able to kind of combine your career as a lawyer, but then also with your content creation. And it's clear that you're very creative. And so that's cool that you're able to still exercise that kind of side of your brain. But I was hoping you'd go back a little bit more to kind of like the preparation for law school because I know you mentioned like University of Georgia, that's where you wanted to go, even though you probably had like a plethora of other options. But what kind of was that preparation like? Because I know for many folks like that, the LSAT, studying for that, it can be pretty expensive and taking the test and planning it out and also all the application fees depending on like your socioeconomic background, especially for the Black community where there's not a lot of people in the legal field. And so, yeah, could you kind of take us back to maybe your like senior year college self and what that was like?
Yes. So I remember the first thing I did was I tried to find as many free resources as I could. So you could find free LSAT tests online, and you could just take those. So I would just take them under timed conditions. I would just, get a little timer out and break it down like I knew that they broke down the test. And so once I did that a couple times, I saw my weakness areas and I'm like, I need to get better at this. So it was really, I would just go on Amazon and I would buy used books and I would study those books. And eventually I felt like I kind of reached a plateau. I wasn't getting I wanted to get a higher score. And so I'm like, well, how do I do this? And I knew that there were LSAT practice courses, but they were even then, what I'm saying, they were $1,000 in 2015. That's a lot of money. And I think they're still that much now. And I'm a college student. I don't have any money, right? I have a little job at the bookstore, but it's paying minimum wage. It's not enough to pay $1,000. So my grandma actually paid for it. She knew I wanted to go to law school, and I still to this day I'm like, oh my god, it just changed the trajectory of my life. So she gave me $1,000 to take the class. It was a Kaplan course, and they're still kind of dominating in the space. And that it just took off from there because I was doing those tests every night. I was doing the Kaplan class online several times a week and taking it over and over again. But I was really kind of obsessive about it. So I was taking practice tests constantly. I would go back. Every single time I got a question wrong, you study that question, you understand the logic, you understand why you got it wrong. And then it becomes pattern recognition. So I always tell people, I'm like, with the LSAT and with the bar, it really is pattern recognition. They can only ask the question so many different ways, right? And so once you start to pick up on, okay, this is what they're getting at, and this is how the test makers think, then you can really blow it out of the water. But you can only do that with practice and time. And that's the problem, right? In the Black community, if I'm in school full time and I have to also work to put myself through school, or I have a child or other responsibilities, you know what I'm saying? Perhaps you don't have time to take a practice test hours of each day. And so, that's some of the things that some other people, my colleagues, struggled with. But for me, I was pretty lucky. I was just, a student. I had a little job, whatever, but it wasn't anything. It's easy. You can study while you're working at the bookstore. So I was just lucky in that way. I had a lot of time on my hands, basically.
That is so helpful for our listeners because I actually didn't even know they had like free LSAT prep courses. And so I think it's great that you explain that there are those resources out there, but you also had some support from your family, which is fantastic. And so, yeah, also could you kind of fast forward a little bit into when you were in law school and kind of like what were the funding sources for that? How did you find funding? Was it like scholarships? Did you have like fellowships or, yeah, kind of what was that process like?
No, I didn't. So I only had student loans because I think in law school there was a scholarship for undergrad if you were in Georgia and you had just like a 3.0 GPA. But in law school, I don't think they had that. And I didn't get anything because I was already an in-state student. So they're kind of like, you already, you getting like half off, like the tuition's already cheap. Like, girl, relax, Savannah, slow down. So I didn't really have I don't think I had any scholarships. I think it was completely student loan funded. And I did work a little bit in law school in like my second and third year, but they don't let you work. So your first year of law school at UGA at least, they will not let you have a job. Now, did people have jobs on the low? Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
You know what
this
I'm saying?
you
Yeah,
have
it's
to.
kind of that's hilarious, but yeah, I mean, you have to have a job, but technically you could get in trouble. You get called into the dean's office if they find out that you're working because they really want you to focus. I guess first year, especially the minority students, a lot of us did not have parents who were lawyers. And so it just, there's a lot of catching up and catching on to do. So I think it was really tough because a lot of those kids come in and their mom's a lawyer, their dad's a lawyer, their older sister's a lawyer, graduated from the same law school. So they have outlines and resources from their older siblings, and they share with each other. And you know what I'm saying? Us coming from the outside, they're not sharing that information with us. So they already know everything that's gonna happen in the entire semester because their older sister, passed down the outline. And and they're gatekeeping that information because it's still competitive. So it's graded on a curve. So right, if they can get the higher grades, somebody has to get the lower grades and push the grades higher. So, that was tricky. That was definitely tricky.
Yeah, that is so fascinating. Thank you so much for that. And I could only imagine being in law school, and like you said, a lot of minority students don't have the resources, they don't have the same access, they don't have the family that have like been there before to help them and guide them. And I was wondering if you could speak to that a little more, like your experience as a Black woman in law school, and like how did you cultivate community within that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I had always gone to these kind of Southern SEC schools. So Georgia Southern was my undergrad. Basically, what I'm trying to say is like majority white institutions. So it was Georgia Southern was interesting because I didn't feel like, of course, I'm a minority student, but there are a lot of Black students at Georgia Southern because it was kind of a big, decently sized undergrad. When you go to law school, it's a lot smaller. Your class size is maybe like 200 students, and so it's tiny. And then our law, we had probably like 12 Black students, maybe 20 max out of the entire class, and we're spread out in different sections. So they would have XYZ, just three different sections. Like we're taking the same classes, but at different times. And so you might be in class with like one other Black student. And that really was the first time I was like, oh, wow, like, yeah, I am a Black student. I'm Black, and it's just obvious. And it felt very segregated, if I'm being honest. I mean, it was, and I don't know if the other white students like were doing that on purpose, but the energy was weird. Like we would be in class sitting next to each other. Like I know you, you know me, and then we're out at the bars and you don't know me. Like it's very weird. Or you don't talk to me, you don't look in my direction. I'm like, "Oh, okay." So, yeah, so that was hard to navigate, but we have the Black Student Association. So every law school will have BALSA. Undergrads have, I think, like their own version. I forget what it's called in undergrad, but there's a law school version too. And we were just tight. We're still close to the 10 years later, and we're still close to this day because there's just it's almost like bonding. What do they call it? Like trauma bonding. Because it's hard to explain or understand what it's like when you're like one of 12 and it's obvious and you're not, like, the other students are just not really communicating, talking with you. Now I still see them out and about and we're cool as far as like the other students, but it felt really segregated, if I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that experience. I know Brad and I can relate because we also went to PWIs, the University of Washington, which in
Oh,
Seattle, there's not a lot of Black people here. It's a very small community. I forget the percentage. It's maybe like 6%, actually. And so, like in Georgia, I'm sure, like you said, in law school, you felt that amplified, which probably was not usual for you growing up where there's usually a bigger Black community. And so, yeah, it's interesting because I think that, like, guise of elitism can really like permeate in an environment like that, and you speak to that very well, that you were able to find your own community and have the Black association for law students and make sure that there were people you could relate to, because if you don't, then it's kind of like you'll compartmentalize that pain and then maybe end up not finishing your program. But I was hoping, could you, in law school, did you have any like specific moments of adversity other than like the feelings of isolation? But yeah, just generally, like, were there specific challenges that you kind of overcame during that time?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I did because I was so focused on it might even just be hard for me to remember because I think I was so focused on trying to like survive and get through it, because I did not have anybody to talk to, nobody to really guide me through it. We're trying to figure it out. And so and so much time just studying because it was such a different environment for me versus undergrad. It was kind of easy. Like I'm majoring in, philosophy. I'm taking Spanish classes. Like it's really not rocket science. You can kind of look at the materials the night before and go in the next day. You can get an A on the exam. Like, so, but law school is different because you only have one test a semester, and that's your whole grade. And so once I started figuring that out and seeing the other students, like they knew, you know what I'm saying? You need to be in the library every day, or you need to be reviewing this material periodically so that you remember, so you're not cramming. It's the same, you know what I'm saying, for final exams. So you're not cramming at the end. Whereas in undergrad, you could do that. But law school, it's like, dang, how do I memorize a whole semester's worth of material for all of my classes? So I think that was most of my focus. I think I didn't face I was even back then, I was kind of fearless. I'm a little bit not as fearless now because life has like beat me down a little bit. But I think in law school, I know, but in law school, I really didn't have any fear. And so I was just popping it. Like I really didn't have any problems because if you said something sideways, like, let's address it here and now. And so I would have little confrontations with the other students. I'll put it like that. I would have little confrontations. But no, I mean, let me go back. There's this one woman. She was a moot court mock trial professor. She wasn't a professor. She would come in and just coach us because she used to be on the team. And I feel like I'm vindicated now. I low key feel like she's racist now because I look at her Twitter account. Yeah, I feel like yeah, exactly. Very active on that. That's what happened. I got verification later. When I look on Twitter, I'm like, I knew it because she would just go in on me when I was giving my arguments and all that, just presenting it. She would cut me off. She was just nasty, above and beyond nasty, not constructive criticism. And so there's little microaggressions, stuff like that. But you know what I'm saying? It can be hard. I'm sure y'all can relate. Like when you're like, okay, this is the environment that I have kind of always known. This is kind of the environment I've grown up in. And you almost don't even realize that was messed up until you reflect on it years later. So
Exactly.
100%.
It's okay. Yeah, we went to a predominantly white high school where there was a lot of racism, a lot of microaggressions, and I would be crashing out on people too, because Tiana's a lot more calm than me, but I would be like, okay, let's get it, let's go. And I would be ready. I would be ready, guns blazing, ready to go. And so I was wondering if you could speak to like how you have learned to like keep your composure when you encounter those kinds of situations, because it can be really hard because Black people are fed up. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah, fed up, fed up. And my friends do not listen to me because I feel like I'm more of like the pacifist. I will, it'll, this is what I think it is. I'm a former crash out. So I think now I've calmed down because I've seen how that can be destructive, like losing friendships, you know what I'm saying? You might have legal consequences. It's really just but God that I never ended up like behind bars because it could have easily been me because I was popping it and like no fear. So it's just, people just didn't call the police on me. But at any given time, I'm like, wow, maybe I should calm down, think about this in a different way. And you start to get to a point where like you've heard it all, you've done it all. So you're like, this doesn't really phase me as much as it did. So I try to think about the consequences of a crash out. But yeah, my people don't listen to me. They like, I hear you, but I don't care. I'm gonna crash out now. I'm gonna say my piece, and I'm like, you know what? That's fine. But I don't know. I think I've just calmed down as I've gotten older. But I'll still have my little comeback. My husband would be like, you have not calmed down. You're still on level 10. You've gotten a little bit better, but just the other day you were arguing with somebody back and forth, and I'm like, well, there's only so much you can do.
That's really so funny. Well, you're a reformed crash out, it sounds like. So it looks like you found some healthier coping mechanisms. But yeah, moving forward into now your career, you made it through law school, obviously. So your success as an attorney opened the door for you to start your own a law firm, the Luncheon Legal Firm. Can you discuss the journey of starting your own firm and any challenges you faced? And then additionally, can you share any advice to young professionals who aspire to open their own law firm?
Yeah. I worked at the prosecutor's office. I did a bunch of stuff. I was a public defender, I did immigration, I was a prosecutor. And I think I got to a point, really, what happened was this was during George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery. And Ahmaud Arbery happened in Georgia, South Georgia, but still in Georgia. And so I'm working at the prosecutor's office and I'm like, are y'all going to speak? Because, this happened in our state and the killers need to be prosecuted and it's going viral and y'all are not saying anything. And I'm at Fulton County, which is that's a majority black district attorney's office. Fonnie Willis runs it right now. But there's a prosecuting authority which is over the whole state of Georgia. And so I'm waiting for, basically corporate to issue a statement like what's going on. And they just remain silent. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done. Like if I speak up, I'm probably going to get fired. But I feel like we as law enforcement, a black man was killed unjustly. We are law enforcement, so we need to be prosecuting and doing something about this and speaking up about how this is not right. And it's radio silence. That made me really uncomfortable. At some point later, they made a statement, but it's like, yeah, y'all, okay, you're gonna make a statement now after he's already been indicted. Like after you've seen public pressure, the tide has turned. When like from jump, y'all should have said something. So yeah, that was kind of my impetus to leave. And also, when you're a government employee, there's especially when you're a prosecutor, you're working on that side, you can't really say what you want to say. You can't speak your mind. You should be able to because you work for the government and you would think you have some type of free speech, but not really. So they'll fire you in a heartbeat or they'll find a reason. Like they'll be like, what I'm saying? We're not going to say we fired you for your speech. We're going to say we fired you because we didn't like how you handled this case. Like they can always find a way to say something. So I left there and I had 5 years of experience by that point. So that was 2020. Went out on my own and was just going to find a way because I got tired of working for other people, got tired of feeling like I was limited. And that was kind of the beginning of social media for, I think, professionals kind of branching out on social media. Now you see, every lawyer, every professional has a social media page, but lawyers hadn't really done that before. And I felt so just suffocated. Like the creativity, I feel like it was just being sucked out of me by the day in this profession. And it does that to you. And so once I figured out I can go on social media and get clients and people were kind of being really receptive, I'm like, okay, maybe I can market that way. And it just, it blew up to what it became today.
That is awesome. I really love that you were able to, learn from that experience and be like, look, these people are not speaking up on issues that are important to me and that need to be spoken up about. And you were able to utilize that, social media and build your own platform. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to like, how do you think people can make that transition? Or do you have any advice for people who want to make that transition and build their own thing but are a little afraid to? And how can they utilize like social media to do so?
Yeah, it's certainly really risky. So I was fed up. I had like no money in my account and I did not care. I was like, I'm quitting and I'm quitting now. And I'm simply going to have to find a way to figure it out. So I might have had like a month worth of expenses saved up. So don't do that. Definitely plan better than I did. Try to have something in the bank just in case you can't sustain because it might take a while. But I would say people it makes sense for people to be scared because having a steady 9 to 5 check there's something comforting about it. And I love a 9 to 5. Like I am not propaganda. I don't believe in is trashing every 9 to 5. It's security. It's security. Yeah. And it makes sense. So I will never be like, oh no, you need to be an entrepreneur. No, like you have benefits, you have health insurance. That's fantastic. You don't have all that as an entrepreneur, or you have to pay for it and it's expensive. So I would say try to save up as much as you can. If you can still be on social media and make a name for yourself and have a job, try to do that. But therein lies the problem because a lot of jobs don't want you active on social media or you have to play it really safe. And so what I was doing was I did have social media. I was playing it a little bit safe in the beginning. Not really. I was definitely pushing it a little bit. Like my supervisor would literally be texting me like, oh, like she would say it like it was a joke, but she was dead. So she'd be like, oh, did you make this like on the clock? And I'd be like, ha ha ha. But she would put like an LOL, but she was dead. You know what I'm saying? She was very serious. So yeah, like, ooh, I did.
They're keeping tabs.
They were very keeping tabs, yeah. Very screenshotting, sending me texts. I'm like, okay, so I knew my time was probably up shortly. But if you can do it, I would say do it and just don't It's definitely scary because people are looking at you, and people straight up were like, she doesn't know what she's doing. She can't succeed on her own. She won't get clients. It won't work. She's young, all the stuff that they'll say. Cause I was like 24 years old, and they were just like, she can't do it. And I'm like, I mean, I feel like I can. So there's a little something in being delusional and just doing it and not being scared. So that's my biggest thing. Lean into it, push forward. People are gonna say and have negative things to say about you, but now, what I'm saying, when it pops, those same people are gonna be in your face like, "Wow, I've been watching you. You've done so well. Like, oh my God, please save it."
Literally, people always act like they believe in you after, you get to where you wanted to go, but in the come up, they're like, I don't know. I don't know if she can do it. And I just love that you said, hey, I'm quitting. I got like a month of expenses saved up, but I'm gonna go and I'm gonna bounce. Yes, people should plan more wisely, but clearly the universe has your back. I had a bigger plan for you because you were able to do it, and look at you now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah, that's it. You just have to know, I don't know, if you I feel like if you believe in it, if you push, but you have to work. And I had been building it up, and I wasn't afraid. I think that's another thing. I knew what it was like to be broke. You know what I'm saying? I knew what it was like to really not be able to afford a super nice apartment, and I wasn't getting paid that much. This is what it was. I wasn't getting paid that much at the DA's office. And so whatever my little check was, I was like, well, I can make this little check, or if I can Uber, look, I can Uber, I can do other stuff to earn this check back. And I think that's what employers don't understand. Like, if you're paying someone a decent salary, you're giving them benefits, then they might stay. But if you're paying them just a little bit and I can make more, like literally working as like a manager at a fast food restaurant, I'm going to be more likely to be like, okay, well, I'll just go. So that was another factor. I wasn't getting paid that much.
Yeah, no, that I feel like this is so helpful too because you spoke about having that faith in yourself to just take the leap. Even like you said, you knew what it was like to kind of go with less. And so that probably helped you be willing to sacrifice a little bit more and just like bet on yourself. And I was hoping you'd be able to describe a little bit about like some of the salient characteristics in prosecuting versus defense because you made a switch at some point, right? I'm guessing when you decided to open your firm. And so could you kind of share what was the impetus behind that switch?
Yeah, so I had gone from defense attorney to prosecutor back to defense. So it was defense
Okay.
first. And the switch from defense to prosecutor, I think I had bought into a little bit the narrative that, oh well, when you're a prosecutor you can just dismiss the cases and you can really do more on this side. You don't have to beg anybody for anything. You can just do what you want with the cases. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I can be on that side and I can do justice, and I don't have to beg these prosecutors to do the right thing. I can just be the person who does the right thing. And then you get in there and you're like, no, this is a bureaucracy. Like, you have the person on top and you can't simply dismiss it. It's like any other job. Like, you have oversight and they're telling you what you can and can't do. Everyone talks about prosecutorial discretion. Some people have that, but at that office, like, it was so dystopic. Like, you would go in and they would clap. They would be like, somebody be like, "Oh, I got a sentence. Somebody got 30 years in prison today," and the whole room would clap. Or it was psychotic. Or they would be like, "Oh, I got a verdict, a life sentence, and the jury only took 5 minutes," and they would give you trophies for like the fastest that you could send somebody to prison.
That's
It was
inhumane. Like
no,
that's
it was
act
inhumane.
as a black person, like being in that
Nuts,
environment, there's no way that
nuts.
wouldn't cripple your soul. Like you're
In an all black,
yeah.
all black office at that.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
wild.
yes. So it is crazy. And so I'm like, okay, this is uncomfortable. It's not what I thought it was going to be. And very rarely, like, the majority of your job mostly is people who are like homeless, mentally ill, like nuisance. They call them nuisance crimes. Like, you didn't really hurt anybody. You just kind of did something annoying. Like, you're loitering and this person doesn't want you loitering like on their street. Very rarely are you working up to the level of like doing murders and things like that, or sexual crimes. That's not the vast majority of a DA's office. Is not, it's just not that. It's going to be these little small everyday stuff. So that too was something eye opening to me because I'm like, bro, what are we doing? Like, why we're spending so many resources on like this person had one like maybe a crack rock literally like in their pocket and they're in custody and they have a $500 bond and they can't get out because they don't have $500 because they are homeless, and so now they're in prison because they can't, they can't call somebody to give the five. I mean, it's just crazy. Yeah, that was kind of, I have bought into the narrative like I can fix this. I got on the inside, I was like, bro, no, this is a system. No shade to, I know people want to be prosecutors and they feel like, I have a lot of colleagues who are prosecutors, and I think we just look at the world differently. Like they do feel like they're putting the bad guys away and changing the world. And I just don't have that perspective anymore. I don't think you can't really change that system. The system is going to be like that, and it does not matter who's running the office. You are another cog in the system. When you leave, somebody else is going to fill that role, and it just doesn't really change. So at some point I was like, I just don't, I don't want to be the police. I don't want to be the police, right? I don't want to do this anymore. It's not right for me. I thought I was going to be able to just dismiss everything, but you can't. You have to explain. Like, I'll dismiss a case and I got to go. Now I'm getting called up to the principal's office. Oh, well, why did you do this? Why did you dismiss this case? You know what I'm saying? What happened? I'm like, I thought I had discretion. Oh, I don't. It's cool.
Principal's
So,
office
yeah.
as an adult is out of line.
It's crazy.
Because
I'm
I'm
a
doing my
grown
job.
person.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing my job. Because I'm doing my job. I dismissed it because there's no evidence. Because the cop messed up and shouldn't have arrested this person. Like, I didn't just do it because I felt like it. So yeah, and it was just hostile environment, as it should have been. And a lot of people think like the police are they weren't friends with me. Let me just say that. Like, I had a very hostile relationship with the Atlanta Police Department when I was at the DA's office. So that was another thing. It's like, they're calling me, asking me, well, why did you not prosecute this case? And I'm like, that's once you arrested this person, but it's now in my jurisdiction to decide what to do with the case. So you don't call me and ask me what I'm doing, where the case is going. I'm dismissing it, and that's it. So, and of course they don't like that. So I'm fighting with them. Then they don't want to show up to court. They don't want to do what they're supposed to do. And I'm like, okay, I mean, you don't come to court, the case gets dismissed anyway. So what I'm saying? I don't,
So you're
what's
winning.
going on?
Yeah.
So I'm like,
thanks
all
for the
you're
favor.
doing, what's
Yeah.
the problem? Yeah, like,
Right.
I'm confused. You don't do your job. That just helps the person get out. So cool. I'm not about to, keep this person in here. And you already told me you're not coming to court. I'm like, Judge, they're not coming. So, you know what I'm saying? Let's get rid of it. So yes, that was my, then the impetus to leave was basically all that. I didn't want to do it anymore, but I also felt like the laws are written in such a way that it's easy to be a prosecutor, in my opinion. It's extremely easy to get a conviction because the laws are in your favor, right? You got the police on your side. They're doing writing up the case, writing the police reports in certain ways. And I felt like the real kind of place where your skill set is needed is on the other side, on the defense. You're trying to help this person who has the state against them, all the resources that the state has, and the state has so many resources. And so if you really want to use your mind and legal strategy and try to figure it out and get around and really kind of push it to the limit, I felt like the defense side, that's where you're doing that.
Right. That is just so wild to me. And I'm sure you can relate. I would have too much empathy to be in that situation just to be like locking people up. So the fact that people are celebrating and getting trophies for throwing someone behind bars for 30 years is just kind of wild to me. So I was wondering, when people are getting their trophies celebrating locking people up, do they also acknowledge like the harms in the system, or were they just like, lock them up? Yay.
Yes, I'm telling you, like, this is what I think it's hard for people to understand, but they just look at the world completely differently. Completely differently. They're into it, buy into it. We're putting the bad guys away. But it's also when you're surrounded by other people who also believe the same thing, even if you kind of, I'm not gonna say it's a cult, but like, even if you kind of believe a little bit differently, once you talk to somebody else and they're like, no, 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 like, you're doing the right thing. We're putting the bad guys away. We're cleaning up the streets. We're doing the right thing. You start to buy into it and believe it because all your friends are police officers. All your friends are prosecutors, and the defense attorneys are liars. They're dirty. They just want to get their clients out, and they will bamboozle you. They'll trick you. They'll do anything. And it literally becomes an us versus them, literally. And so, yeah, I mean, they did not, people don't feel bad about it. at all. They felt like they're doing the right thing. That's what they should be doing. And so, yeah, I mean, people, it's a unique experience because I am, Atlanta's a very black city. The DA's office is extremely black. And so people are like, wow, black people, there's two sides of the coin. You're a black person and you should police your own community, right? So it's good to have black people who understand. But on the flip side, it's a little bit insidious because you'll see the police officers using that, like using their connection to the culture to essentially get people to get arrested or make confessions or lock people up. So there, it's kind of it's a double-sided coin, I think.
I think that speaks to the fact that white supremacy has really like permeated into our culture, and it even impacts black people. Like they kind of start to take on, those ideals and feed into those systems. And it's really disheartening because it's like, it's hard to like fight for change, want to fight the system when it's like at the same time you have people within our community that are feeding into it. And have you ever like had any interactions where you had to be like, yo, wake up, like don't you see the systemic harm that's taking place and that you're feeding into it? Or were you just like, you know what, these people, they're on their own thing, let me just bounce?
You try to get him out of the sunken place. That's what I say.
Yes.
But sometimes you gotta let him go.
You do. Yeah, I try to do it all the time, but I do it like, not overly aggressive, but I just talk, I'm like, okay, when you come into the defense side, it's better on this side. We can do what we want over here. We're not putting people in prison, but it, when a few years ago, I was way more intense. Like, what I'm saying? You're a prosecutor, you're the police, like it's on site, like it's up and stuck. Now I'm like, okay, I can maybe try to do this in a different way because once you realize like no, they just are completely just do not see the world the same way you do, don't see the facts of the case the same way you do. And it's hard because I think people outside of the system don't realize just how harsh it can be. And so for me, I remember being shocked, like if you're something minor, like say you are on probation and you test positive for alcohol because you're not supposed to be drinking alcohol or whatever, and it's like dang, a judge, they don't care, they'll put you in custody for 20, 30 days, 45 days, or they'll revoke your whole probation one time. Like these judges don't really do a slap on the wrist. I'm in Georgia, it's a really it's strict, right? Maybe not in Fulton County, but we have these really just there's no room for grace, especially when you are black and you're in a southern county. Even some of the white lawyers, like some of my colleagues will be like, straight up, I have to work twice as hard. This is a white lawyer. They'll be like, whenever I have a black client, they can just see the difference. I'm working twice as hard. I'm filing this many motions because it's just the discrimination. And like these are people who wouldn't normally be like the Southern old school classic white lawyers who who are not always thinking about race, even are starting to be like through this profession, like, wow, no, like the discrimination, the way you treat my white clients and my black clients is just nuts. So it's tough.
Wow, I feel like that's a perfect pivot, just speaking more to your experience as a black woman in this field. And it's very interesting that you said even white people are starting to notice, or I'm sure they have been noticing, but they're, in your experience, they're like, oh, wow, I really see this. According to a recent report from the Legally Black Fund, a nonprofit organization dedicating to supporting aspiring black women attorneys and increasing representation of black women in law, only 2% of attorneys in the U.S. are black women. Have you experienced any struggles navigating a career field where 78% of lawyers are white and 60 to 70% of law firm leaders are white men, as cited by the American Bar Association?
Yeah. I attended a brunch probably maybe like 2 years ago with a justice on the Supreme Court of Georgia. She's a black woman. I think she's the only black woman there. And she said that that number has unfortunately been the same since she was in law school. It doesn't increase. It pretty much stays the same. And you know what I'm saying? What happens when you don't grow? And I don't know the reasons for that, but it's not great that that number stays right around 2% or 4%. And I think it's a mixture of things. It is the culture of being a lawyer. It is being a black woman. Black women in particular, and women in particular too, tend to just leave the field. We don't tend to stay long enough to become partners. we do other things because I do think it's just kind of a hostile environment. So for me, being it's a little bit better because I am in Atlanta mostly, and so there's a lot of black lawyers here. A lot of black lawyers here. Like I almost don't even. It feels like it's way more than 4. But I'm like it's 50%,
It's like
right?
all the
But
black lawyers in this
in Atlanta,
statistic are in
yes,
Atlanta, probably.
yes. It's like Atlanta and DC. I'm like, we're all in those two places. So I'm like, we lit. Like, I'm very comfortable. There's a lot of us here, but it's true. A lot of people have never met a black lawyer. Like the first time they see a black lawyer is probably online. People have told me that. I'm like, that is nuts. So I think it's still hard to navigate because even here we still have our issues, but because there are a lot of us, it's a little bit more kind of like nuck if you buck. The Georgia bar, like us, the black lawyers, or just lawyers in general, defense lawyers in general, are very. We just have to be a little bit more aggressive and stand up for ourselves. And if you get held in contempt and you have to, go to jail or whatever, it just kind of it is what it is because you can't let people take advantage of you. You can't just let the judges push you around. You can't let the prosecutors push you around. You have to represent your client and stand up for yourself. So it's just the energy here is very much it's like level 10. The judges, the prosecutors, the defense attorneys, it's fun, but it's a little dangerous because everybody's on level 10. Everybody's ready to like battle at any time. But yeah, of course, you're going to have the issues navigating a majority, white field, being black. But I don't know. I think being in Atlanta helps because you are seeing other lawyers with the braids, the straight backs, like it just being very into the culture and dressing like that no matter where they go. So it's almost like here I think people are just a little bit more used to it versus if I was somewhere else like Idaho or somewhere else like you probably never seen a black lawyer now boom I'm coming in with blonde hair but here it's very normal we're loving hip hop we're just that city so I think people are just that's it so I've probably had a little bit better because I'm here versus other places.
Yeah, I have a very deep desire to move to a city with more of a black population because I can really relate to that. Like here in Seattle, there a lot of assimilation, like you said, a lot of assimilation. We kind of have to appease a certain audience or act a certain way in order to get into certain spaces. But like you said, I could imagine in an Atlanta or a DC, you still face some of those issues, but it's easier to come in your braids and embrace your culture more because you won't be looked at and perceived in a way, or you probably still will, but there's power in numbers and there's more representation and you see more of yourself reflected in your profession in those places. And so I'm glad that, you are there and that you've had that experience where, you can lean on other folks, even though you still experience some of those issues. It's like, I know like y'all gotta team up and work hard to combat these things. And like you said, I think it goes back to what you were saying when you were in law school and like, people had their parents that went to law school, their brothers and their sisters, and they were able to, see what the curriculum was gonna be and have that at home like tutoring and coaching from people that already navigated that. Because of, like the statistics we're looking at, it's probably a lot harder for black people to get into that field because they don't have that like legacy of family members that have like gone and climbed the ranks in that field. So it's like we're really getting it out of the mud brick by brick.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why it's important to talk to one another, to you have to support each other. I think that's the main thing. I think with the criminal defense bar in Georgia, of course there's a lot of messiness, a lot of pettiness. That's just any field, especially the legal field. It's just a messy because we're all performers. So you're a trial lawyer. At the end of the day, you're a performer. You like being on stage. You like the attention. That's the job. So, there's going to be conflict, but I think we do really stand up for one another. Like if somebody literally, there's like a email list serve, there's text, there's email. Hey, I'm down here. This judge is being on level 10 and you'll have 5 people pull up like, what's up? What are we doing? Right? This person is not by themselves. And so that's extremely important. We had something like that with another lawyer in Georgia, Brian Steele, who represented Young Thug. the judge was on level 10. And I think the next day, or maybe even that same day, they had like 10, 15 defense attorneys outside the courthouse standing there like, we're ready. And so they need to know that, like you said, there's power in numbers. But if it's just you by yourself, if you are somewhere like a Seattle or somewhere else, yeah, it's going to be a lot harder for you because do you have that community? Who's going to come down there? Even if you are in the right and you're defending yourself, it can be really lonely. And so that's tough.
Yeah, that's so great that you share that and how those connections allow you to feel like you have a bit, of a backing in situations where maybe it's difficult for you to advocate for your client or you feel like there's just no other alternative, but that you have other people that will speak up for you. And I think that goes for any, profession. And I love that you're talking about like redefining what a lawyer looks like too, because like you're making that accessible to everyone on TikTok, on social media, and so there's going to be young Black kids that look up to you and they're like, I can do that too. I can go in with my braids and whatever I'm wearing and feel proud of who I am and embrace my Blackness and be an excellent lawyer. And so, yeah, it's a great pivot into your online presence. And beyond the courtroom, you've cultivated an online community of more than 1 million followers with your content generating tens of millions of views and likes across all platforms. Your platform aims to break down legal issues in a way that is understandable and accessible to the masses while maintaining your authenticity and adding a touch of personal humor. Can you share how amassing this online platform has impacted your life and how you curated your personal brand?
Yes. Yeah, I think that in today's day and age, it's important to have a personal brand because it gives you freedom. Like if you and it gave me a little too much freedom because I'll be like, I don't feel like doing this today. I don't want to work this job. I don't want to work with you. I don't want to work with this client. I'm just gonna go back to social media. Like, or I know I can get clients on my own because I built this fan base. So it gives you this platform. So it gives you this freedom to kind of move how you want to move, and have that confidence because you know that you have something there that you can fall back on, if need be. So the content creation, I think, totally changed my life for sure. Because it got me to be creative again, which I really sorely, desperately needed an outlet for the creativity. It connected me with so many people I never would have met, new people online, friends that I've made, and also did open up my eyes to what other lawyers are doing across the world, connecting with other Black lawyers, just so much. So I think it's really important, and it allowed me to be an entrepreneur. It allowed me to open up my law firm. It allowed me to have the confidence to say, you know what, you can do this. And this is something that I would not have been able to do had I not started social media. I don't think so. I would have stayed in like my little lawyer lane because even being in Atlanta, there is still like the standard of lawyer, especially in 20 like 16, 17, 18, 19, it was still like, it looked a certain way, old white man. That was the standard. Even it was even you couldn't even really say Black Lives Matter back then. Like you would be ostracized, you might lose your job. Like you couldn't say that. And so I probably still would have been like in my little hole of this is what a lawyer is. I don't know that I would have ever left the DA's office. I probably would have been a career prosecutor. It totally shaped and changed the way that I think, seeing other people online, especially other Black scholars and people talking about these issues and analyzing things. And I'm like, wow, because I had those thoughts and feelings, but I didn't have anyone to really talk to them with or about, because the Black legal field still, I would say, still is pretty conservative, especially in Georgia. We could talk about how the Black community as a whole, probably a majority of Black community is conservative. Like that's a whole different conversation. And so, right, let's wake it up.
Especially
Another call.
educated Black folks in
Yes.
legal professions in the medical field, like that's also white supremacy, and that, yeah, like you said, another conversation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, completely. And so I think it just never occurred to me that I could talk about these things online, and people were definitely side eyeing me. I can't believe you're doing that. I can't believe you're on the internet. But it just transformed. And now that you see, no one's gonna feel they're not going to support you until they see other people supporting you, unfortunately. And that's just what it is. So I tell everybody that, like, it's okay, right? Your friends and family are not going to get it at first, especially if you're doing something different that they've never done or they don't understand. It's okay. They're not going to get it, and they don't have to, and they might not be the audience for you. But if I hadn't found that community, I think I would be just a totally different person. So I truly think that this social media, TikTok, I think it did change my life, unfortunately, because that app, it's just different now. I don't love the app as much as I did before, but it definitely opened the door and let me see social media and what it can do for your life.
Yeah, no, I feel like it's really the app has kind of changed. It's not what it used to be, but I feel like it's still good that you're able to do what you need to do. And you're right. Like, people might not understand what you're doing. I know it can be very nerve-wracking because of the pressure that society puts on us in the like, just in any profession. Like, oh, if I post this or if I show my personality or if I wear a certain thing or dress a certain way, I'm going to be judged. I'm not going to be able to get a job. Like you said at one point, you were getting screenshots from like your boss or whatever.
Yeah, I mean they definitely are. They're gonna judge you 1000%. I almost like compartmentalize. Like I literally just think, no one's gonna see this that I know, or I try not to think about who will see it, which sounds weird, but I just try not to think about it. I try to enjoy the process of making the content versus like who I think will see it. Because once you start to do that and you have fun just posting, then it doesn't feel as much like a job anymore. Because at one point I was miserable. I'm like, oh my God, I have to post, twice a day, every day in order to get eyes on my content. I'm exhausted, but I just need to throw something together. But now I'm like, okay, what if I just have fun? If I lean into the comedy or the whatever, if I have fun with it, the process of editing, and if I'm laughing making the content, maybe someone else will laugh. And I think that also changed the way that I looked at it. And also, I think it's tough when your content is focused on social justice. That can be really tough, really heavy. And it's really important to talk about those things. But I do think that when you're only talking about that, it gets tricky because I started to feel like, okay, the only time people are looking at my content is when I'm like yelling about something unjust. And okay, so I have to come on here and be angry in order for people to care about what I'm saying. And that's not okay. Because if I would show a different part of myself, okay, I also like singing or musical theater, whatever the case may be. No, we don't care about that. We want you to go yell about police brutality. I'm like, okay, I see what you are.
See the game that's going on here. I'm the product.
I'm like, oh, I see what this is. And it just wasn't okay anymore. Once I realized that, I'm like, oh, wow. And a lot of other people were saying the same thing, especially if you're black. They're like, dang, the only time I can talk to you guys is if I'm like shouting and yelling about something or talking about something that's unjust, and that's my everyday life. Especially me being in the criminal justice field, I'm like, I'm doing that day in and day out, like on the ground. So there's other parts of me, so it can be really really tough about that. So if you can open it up, talk about other things, don't be afraid to do that. But every single person, I feel like every single content creator, like the big ones, have all said something similar. Like, yeah, we were judged, it was cringe, it's super cringe, of course it's cringe. Like, I'm, setting up this camera in Walmart. I'm filming myself, like, get ready with me. Like, yes, it's cringe, but you know what I'm saying? There's an audience out there that likes it. And it just takes one video to change your life. I keep telling, I'm like, it's just one video that can completely transform, give you financial freedom. Well, if you're black, it's a little hard. It's definitely harder. But you know what I'm saying? If you keep pushing, you could probably change. But that's a whole different thing. Paying black creatives, black creators what we're worth. It's difficult. It's a lot harder. And I low key just kind of leaned into it. I'm like, listen, I'm not gonna be able to wake up and just like, what I'm saying, put on my makeup and go viral. It was never gonna happen for me. I'm gonna have to do a lot more. And I don't know if that's okay or not. But once I realized that was the reality of the situation, I kind of accepted it for what it was instead of focusing on, damn, like it is 10 times harder for me to just get paid. Like there's just not that many super famous black influencers, especially if you're like in a beauty space. There's like two I can name. Like Clark is one of them. Monet is another one. And it's just a lot harder, right? But that's the game.
Yeah, you had to get a
Whoa.
JD so that you could get famous on there too. So like
Crazy.
that just shows kind of like the disparity where it's like you literally, as Black people, it feels like, we've talked about this so many times on this platform, but that we have to work twice as hard, like in every single aspect of our lives. And like you said, you were consistent, you kept pushing the content out. But ultimately, it sounds like you were just doing it for you. And I think that's really important for folks to hear that you were satisfied with what you were putting out. You weren't creating it necessarily for likes and reactions and things, but like you actually genuinely cared. You're passionate about the legal field. And so like you're conveying that. And it's very apparent just here in this conversation with you. So yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
I can definitely relate. I feel like that's why I stopped making TikToks because I agree with what you said. Like, if you don't put on a certain, like, people like to hear you scream and yell and act a certain way. And I see that for black people too. Like, a lot of times we have to, like, put on a character, act super extra, like, da like, for people to, like, actually listen. Like, it kind of, like, feeds into, sometimes it can feed into, like, the negative stereotypes, I guess you could say, about us. And it's like, if you don't act a certain way, like they don't want to hear black voices. Like you can like other things, like you said, singing or theater, but if you're not on there screaming and like yapping, not literally you, but I'm saying in general, like if you're not on there screaming and yapping, a lot of people will be like, boring. And so I feel like as black people, like we kind of have to like put on a face sometimes. And I was like, you know what, I don't want to be on here screaming and yapping all the time, and I just would rather live my life, and so it could be really hard for black creators, and I hope we can get to a space where we can one day have it as easy as the little white girls who can do a quick 5-second TikTok dance and throw it back and then get 5 million views.
Yes, I'm like, y'all, it's just simply it's not happening for us. Not on that app. And we've been trying to do that since the beginning. And I think we should be able to. I want to be able to just do a little dance
You
and
should.
blow up. Yes, or
Yeah.
just vlog about like going out to parties
Yeah.
and being, drunk, all that stuff that they can do, but we can't do that. If we do that, we're trashing your ghetto. That's disgusting. I'm not gonna get a brand deal with Sephora doing that. So it's just
It's identity politics. And another, I was reading an article, this was like years ago, but it was about how the algorithms like encourage modern day minstrelsy. I don't know if you're familiar with that term or like what the minstrelsy shows were, but back in before slavery, which like Jim Crow era, there were white, actors that in theater they'd be performing in blackface, and it became a phenomenon for white people to consume. And so when you think about like that historical archetype and you translate it to our current modern day technology, a lot of that's still persisted because who's creating our algorithms? Like the biases are still there, racism's still there. And so it's something that I don't think people realize is like subversive, but that it's yeah, it's still relevant and it's still affecting us even if people don't realize it.
yes,
Yeah.
100% spot on. And people lean into it because they, you do what the
It
algorithm wants you to
works.
do. It works. I want to go
Yeah.
viral. The algorithm told me that I have to tap dance to go viral, so that's what I'm gonna do. So it's just it, and
Not the
I
literal tap
can't.
dancing, that's what it is.
Yes,
Yeah, they're like perform
that's
for us.
Yeah.
yeah. Dance now,
It's horrible.
and we'll give you 50 cents.
Yeah.
Like, and it's because the money's not even good. So it's just
They're like, take your crumbs.
Taker comes,
Literally.
keep dreaming.
Well, I'm so glad you haven't given up on your dream and you're still, doing your thing and making content that is adding, your personal touch and also educating the masses. And I know for a lot of people, like who's especially don't have a law background, it could be hard to understand law and certain legal, ideas and things like that. And I was wondering if you could speak to the importance of educating the public in a clear and concise way that doesn't include all the jargon, because I feel like even in politics a lot of people like want to be engaged, but they just don't understand. They don't make it easy for the masses to like break down and understand in a way that's digestible.
Yeah, yeah, it's really hard. It is so hard. That's actually something I struggled with, I think, when I first started making content. Because truly, if I made the content that I find the most interesting, oh my God, it would be just like deep dives. It would be legal jargon, it would be really high level, like university, law school level, like we're gonna really get into it. And it was hard for me to separate the forest from the trees. I'm like, oh my God, this is not interesting. I'm not explaining this. No one's gonna know what I'm talking about. And it's also been surprising to me, some of the things that I think in general people don't know about the legal field, because I had been so just ingrained in it for years, like through law school and then practicing for years before I got on TikTok. And there were some things I would just say, and the people are like, what is that? And I'm like, oh yeah, I really should break this down. And that is such a skill, right? Because we say that in law when we're trying, if I'm trying a case, I need everyone to understand what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what education level you are. I need everybody. Even if you didn't graduate from high school, if you went to sixth grade, I need you to understand what I'm saying. Just like I need the person who is an like a professor to understand what I'm saying. So that's a skill to really be able to reach people where they are, no matter what their education level is, and be able to have them understand these kind of high level concepts. And so that's something that I really enjoy doing. I enjoy thinking about that and breaking it down to its most minute way. And I had a professor, and she was like, never use like a $20 word when like a 2-cent word will do. Like, don't ever use this big crazy word with the thesaurus is when you can just break it down and sound really simple. And so I like that. And my husband is funny because he said he noticed that about me. Like, I really just like plain speak, really plain, break it down, as concise as you can make it, which doesn't work for every topic. I think the internet has a little bit of an issue with that because some things, nuance exists, and you can't do that with everything. So that's also it becomes a problem sometimes when you're trying to break it down too much on every topic. But yeah, I think it's really important to do that because you want the legal field and you want the law to be accessible because it affects everyone's life every day. It's just like politics, right? Those two things just affect your life, whether you know what the law is or not. That's not going to stop the law from affecting changing the way that you live. So I think it's super important.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, but I feel like that's why someone like a Donald Trump can become so successful, because I feel like that's what he's genius at. And maybe he does it on purpose, or maybe he just isn't that bright, but he can say something like, Joe Biden raised the price of eggs very bigly and I brought it down by 2 cents, the greatest president to ever do it. And like, he just says like the most like simple ABC 1, 2, 3 stuff. And it resonates with people because they don't really understand anything about politics. So he could just say, make up a word and people are like, well, yes. So
I'm sorry, the impression was incredibly accurate. I really appreciate that. I love the reenactments. But yeah, no, I think too, like I studied journalism, and so that was similar advice that we got from our professors is like write for someone at a fourth grade reading level. Literally. It's like you can make it, so artistic and use these thesaurus words and things, but it's like, really, what's your point? Like, what are you trying to convey to people? What are you trying to explain and break it down? And so, yeah, I think also like we've been intentionally misinformed in our public education system so that we don't understand the law. We don't understand policies. That's why people are intimidated by even getting involved, like you said. And so, especially like when you're working with clients of color and the Black community, where like we know what the disparities are, we know about systemic oppression, we know that we're not, getting into higher education institutions or getting into these fields like we've already discussed at length. And so it's like if you're communicating to them, like, here are your rights, you need to make sure that they understand this because this is their life on the line. Thank you so much for doing that and like making it digestible, because we need it. Well, moving on to our next question. With the overturning of Roe v. Wade and the prospect of the Obergefell versus Hodges, I hope I pronounced that correctly, decision that legalized same-sex marriage being overturned, can you speak to the importance of civic engagement given the current political climate, which we kind of already spoke about, but also can you inform our listeners on the importance of lower courts and their functions? Because I guess that's usually what people are interacting with most is like the lower courts, if they're,
Yeah, like the people's courts. I think most people are definitely entering the court system at like a smaller level, like child support, you know what I'm saying? I got arrested type beat, but they do other things in the in the lower court. And it's a kind of a perilous time because first of all, it was crazy being in law school. 2 points, I guess. I graduated. So Obergefell was in 2015. So that would have been the year I graduated, but it came down, I don't know, I think it might have been in the summer. So I was studying for the bar, and we had been studying Obergefell and same-sex marriage, and we had been following that case. And I remember being so excited that the Supreme Court did the right thing. I was overjoyed and I was like, okay, great. Like we have same-sex marriage is legalized across the country. Awesome. We learned about Roe v. Wade and precedent and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, Roe v. Wade, like I never imagined it could be overturned ever, right? It's precedent, it's law. This is not something that's going to be overturned. And now with this current Supreme Court, which is bar for bar, probably one of the worst Supreme Courts we've ever had, probably one of the, just trash, especially with the qualified immunity decision saying a president can pretty much do whatever they want. Like, what is that? That's crazy. They literally made that up. And with Roe v. Wade being overturned was shocking to me. I cried that day the decision came down because I'm in Georgia. And so, we already had an abortion ban. So we were one of the test states. What the states will do is they'll go ahead and pass this law. They know it's illegal, push it up to the Supreme Court because they know the Supreme Court is on their side and they know that the law will then be passed. So Georgia had a law ready to go ahead and ban abortion when it got overturned. And so I knew, and it's just tough because I'm in Georgia, I'm a Black woman, we already have a really high maternal mortality rate. So it's like, dang, what do you do when you having a baby can kill you, and the statistics don't look great as a Black woman in Georgia of having a baby and surviving. So it's just really, it's a tough thing to kind of grapple with. And so, that was really shocking. And then Obergefell is still law, has not been overturned, but these states have been pushing for that. And they've been pushing for that for a very long time, just like they've been pushing for Roe. And I think this gets into things that we can do kind of on the other side, the non-Republican side. Like, you don't have to be Democrat. You could be leftist, socialist, whatever. But on the other side, what we see is we have to push as well. Like if they've been doing Project 2025 for 40 years, right? Not Project, but it's been Project 2024, 2023, right? It's gone through these iterations and they're pushing that for decades. We have to understand, we have to push we have to push. And we're in a perilous, horrendous place right now. We really are. And I feel like the Republicans probably felt like this when gay marriage was getting passed, when Roe v. Wade passed, and we're all celebrating. They probably felt like, damn, the country's going to shit. Crap, right? It wasn't, but that's probably how they felt. They probably felt how we feel right now. So we have to continue to push. And I try to uplift people and be like, we're down bad right now. I'm not gonna hold you. We're down bad, but we can't give up just because we're not winning today. You have to keep pushing. You have to keep fighting those battles. But with same-sex marriage, it's hard for me, and I couldn't sit here and look anybody in the face and be like, well, it's not going to get overturned, because people felt like that about abortion. But at the same time, I don't want to fearmonger and be like, oh, we have 30 minutes before this law gets over, or before this case gets overturned. I think the Supreme Court is really unpopular right now. They've taken a lot of bad press. And I don't think right now they're going to overturn Obergefell. They're going to overturn same-sex marriage. But do I think that they're gunning for it? 1,000%. I think they're gunning for it, and they're going to do the thing where they say they leave it to the states. And what does that mean? If you're in a southern state like mine, I'm in Georgia, same-sex marriage is going to be outlawed. And then I'm going to have to, you go from state to state, and, oh, I'm in New York, and my marriage, I have a same-sex marriage, I can get married. No, I'm in Georgia. Well, they don't want to recognize my marriage. And so it's frustrating. I think right now we're solid, we're good. But I definitely think never take anything for granted, because this Supreme Court has demonstrated that they don't care about precedent. They don't care what the other cases have said. They're going to come in and do what they want. And essentially, I think they're just Trump's puppets. I mean, he nominated Amy Coney Barrett because he knew that she would overturn abortion. He nominated people who he knew would fall in line with his agenda, white supremacist agenda, if we're going to call it what it is.
Yeah,
Christian nationalism as well.
Exactly. Yeah. It's evangelicalism too, I think. Like, yeah, white supremacy. It all goes hand in hand. But I just want to start off with poor Ketanji. I know she's tired, as we all are. Oh. And like you said, like, people can't get too cynical about where we're at right now, because that's what they want. They want us to be fatigued so that we start retreating, and then they will continue to up the ante on these policy proposals that they have, the agenda that they're pushing. Like, they've already been planning this the last 8 years. And so now it's like, we really need to figure out what's the next step after these 4 years are up, because that's been, I think, like, the downfall of the Democrats. is not actually having like a clear agenda and acting that out and implementing it, and also communicating that to their base and also getting buy-in. And so it's kind of like, yeah, where are we at? People are not really on the same page, and yeah, just in, left circles, if you're a Dem, if you're, whatever you identify as, I think, yeah, folks just need to understand that it's us that actually have the power. And like collectively, we have to galvanize around these issues that we care about. Because, like you said, you're being realistic. You don't want to fearmonger or be an alarmist, but it's like it could happen. Like really, if this continues and people stop engaging with the system, it will die.
Yeah, it's just so disappointing to see how we've been moving backwards lately and seemingly very quickly. And it makes me think about our conversation or what we were talking about earlier, with your experience in the all black firm in Georgia. And I'm pretty sure at the Supreme Court level, didn't Clarence Thomas like receive money from some billionaire who like paid for one of his grandkids to go to a private school, and like just all this corruption at the top. And it makes me think of like how can we get people, especially our people, not to buy into these systems, because I feel like it's when you're like down and out and at the bottom, it's easier to understand these things, but once you like make it up and you're in those upper echelon white elite circles, it's so easy to just sell out and feed into the system. And it just makes me think like how can we get people to be like, okay, look, we understand you got your money, you've made it to X, Y, and Z position, but look at the larger issues at play. Like look what we're up against and how to like make sure. Of course, I feel like the majority of black people, we all know we're down for the cause, but there are just some that make it a little hard to push towards liberation and justice and will be like a Clarence Thomas. So it makes me wonder, like when we're dealing with these things, like how can we combat that when a lot of our own people are buying into these systems because it's just a product of white supremacy.
Well, there's always going to be a Clarence Thomas, unfortunately, right? Throughout history, Harriet Tubman probably had a Clarence Thomas and she left him behind. You know what I'm saying? It's just there's always somebody who's going to be like that in the movement. I think we're struggling because I think a lot of groups can't identify who's antagonistic and who's not. And so you have people in these circles who I think are trying to cause trouble and cause division and derision. And the discernment is key there. I don't know. I mean, I deal with this all the time. We always talk about, what do we call it? Like the black excellence blacks is what we joke around and what we call it.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's a very touchy subject, but it's so
it
real, and I'm
is.
always I'm always afraid to dive into it because I'm like, I don't know where they stand. We know where you
Yeah, we
stand,
don't,
though.
yeah, I'm like, we don't have, you know what I'm saying? I always talk about that because it's funny because I'm not like, I feel like I'm in proximity because obviously I went to law school, but I'm not Greek, right? So I'm not in a fraternity sorority. I'm not in some of the upper echelon circles. And if you are in a place like Atlanta, probably DC too, like, Divine Nine, running it, running everything, which is cool. But I think I've been like in proximity, but not directly in that type of energy or
In the mix,
where
yeah.
they are in the mix. I haven't really been completely in the mix, so we say that, and it's just an endearing term. Like, of course, no tea, no shade to anybody in Divine Nine. We love our D9 brothers and sisters, but it's just funny. So I don't know, but it's true. It's like once you get that check, you're like, that's like the other blacks' problem. It's not really our problem. And people are just individualistic. I think it's a product of our society. Everyone kind of is trying to care for themselves and get what they can. And it's a product of capitalism. And I think that's really the real issue. Like, people can't afford to live, people can't afford to buy groceries, rent is high. People are really struggling and they're trying to find a solution. And the Republican solution obviously is like it's minorities, it's gay marriage, it's transgender people, the 1% of the population, which is crazy. Like, the way they talk about it, the way they tell it, you would think 50% of the population is trans. So they're
As
like trying to
trans
pick on this
and
yeah,
issues.
that's their solution. Like, oh, we fix that, then that's the issue in the country. And it's like that's not the problem. It really comes down to like there's a class war. It's more up and down, and that to me seems like the biggest issue. But it's easier to be on that other side because if I can give you a boogeyman, it's harder for us to combat that because we're trying to say, this is what we can do. These are the policies. We can help people. We can, I don't know, have, rent control. We can, whatever, make life more affordable. But racism, She wins pretty much like every time. Like historically she's been that girl and something that people have rallied around.
Clock
So
it.
I'm like
But
How
she's
do we
the
beat that?
distraction because the real crux of it all is capitalism, and then racism is the outset
Yes.
of it. But people, they focus on the race, and that's what they want us all, the identity politics, not realizing, like you said, it's a class issue. It's about that.
it is a huge class issue.
Yeah.
And that's something I think I realized like last election. Cause I'm like, really what's underneath all this? Just like, just dig. What are we really talking about? Like, you want more money in your pocket. You wouldn't be, you worried. It always comes down to money. Oh, I don't like immigrants. Keep digging, keep digging. Why? Oh, well, they're taking my job. Oh, okay. It's the job. You feel like you can't find a job, you can't get enough money. like it keep digging, and that's normally what it comes down to, except for when it comes to black people. They just simply don't like black people. I don't know what that is, but yeah. So
But they're obsessed with us.
ultimately,
That's the thing. They don't like us,
Obsessed.
but they love everything about us. So it's very
Everything.
confusing.
picture,
Yeah.
the words,
The music,
turning
the
woke
creativity.
into it's just so frustrating.
I know.
So I know. I'm like, I'm here. If I can just trigger you by my existence, I don't know what to tell you. But I'm here. So I don't. We not go. And my husband and I talk about this. We're like, where else are you gonna go? Because I feel like if it's in America, first of all, there's racism, anti-blackness everywhere, transcends.
It's global.
continents.
It's literally
It's
global.
global. So you almost have to think about like, what do you want to deal with? Is it, when I talk about America though, I'm like, okay, it's the racism, it's the gun violence, right? It's the going outside and not knowing whether you're gonna come home, sending your children to school, not knowing whether they're gonna come home. Like there's so much of a mixture. And it's like, okay, if I can take one of those things off my plate, but I'm also feeling like low key, we have to fight it here because it just spreads throughout the world. So I'm like, if we're here at ground zero, sometimes I feel torn. I'm like, I need to be here and try to put out this fire here before it just infects everywhere else. Because you can't. I feel like I can only run so far from the issue of fascism and authoritarianism. Taking over everything. So it's something I'm still trying to work through.
Literally.
I
And
relate. Yeah.
yeah, I love that point that you brought up earlier about, the Black excellence blacks. And I wanted to go back too about when we were talking about, the issue of class and just bringing up that it's really important to highlight the intersection of those two things because I feel like when, slavery was racialized, their goal was to create a permanent underclass because in order to maintain a system of capitalism, you have to have people to oppress. You have to have an underclass. So that's exactly what they did. They said, hey, look at these black people. Let's make them the permanent underclass so they can fill up the quote unquote black jobs, as Trump would say. And now we just see that taking place globally. We see, black people being the permanent underclass everywhere, like, in Congo where they're, digging in the cobalt mines so we can have our fancy iPhones. And we just see how that has permeated, across the world and how capitalism, in order to like uphold capitalism, it's almost like you have to have racism, in order to have this system be maintained and ran. And I feel like for a lot of black people, like, black excellence, yes, love it, clap, clap, love to see us win. But at the same time, I feel like it kind of gets to this point where people think like black capitalism will save us. And I used to have that mindset. I'd be like, okay, when I saw a black millionaire and their mansions and their Lamborghinis, I was like, that's not something we could ever have before. So like, yes, I love to see it. And I love to see successful black people, but I think it gets to a point where we have to realize, oh, like, in the same way that we buy into these systems, like in the courts, like you were mentioning, it goes the same way with capitalism. Once people climb these elite rankings, they start to see it from that worldview. Like you said, it becomes a us versus them. And they're like, well, does race really matter? Because look where I made it and I started from the bottom and now I'm a millionaire. And I understand, capitalism is going to take a long time to dismantle that and create a more equitable society. And I'm not trying to poo-poo on anyone who does amass a fortune for themselves, but I think when we talk about this term of black excellence and black economic excellence, it's important to realize that yes, do what you can in this system. If you're, building an empire for yourself, I can say, do what you got to do, but at the same time, try not to switch to that mindset, us versus them, or poo-pooing on people who have it worse than you just because you made it. And I feel like people should try to understand that we will not fully be liberated until all of us are and we all have access to certain resources. So once you get to that level, at least acknowledge I made it here, but this system is wrong and we got to try to do what we do to dismantle it.
Yes, exactly. That was so well said. I honestly
Wasn't
couldn't
it?
say it any better. That was so good. Yeah, I agree. And it's hard. It's hard because you have to kind of make these connections. I spend a lot of time thinking about, man, there's so much with the diaspora wars, but also just like the culture wars and also like, with the black community. And if you are, if you have two identities, how do you reach across? Because there's this whole thing about, a section of the black community who, when ICE came out and started snatching people, and like, oh well, we told you, ha ha ha, we told you not to vote for that man, and it ain't us, we told you it's gonna be y'all before it's gonna be us. And I'm like, okay, this is probably not how we build a coalition, try to work towards something better. But then people, it's hard because you also have to recognize that, for me, if I'm trying to look at it, I'm like, okay, I understand a lot of black people feel betrayed, for sure. Betrayed from the last election, betrayed, felt like you didn't want to vote for the black woman. That's how a lot of people feel. At the same time, does that mean that you should be dancing, you know what I'm saying, as someone's family gets ripped apart, thrown in the back of a van, and there's no due process? I'm like, we have to kind of think about, this looks nuts and insane. I don't think this is something that we should be celebrating. So there's just, I don't know. I've seen some really things that have disheartened me for sure. And every day I'm like, man, I don't know what to do. I think we're all trying to figure out how to fix it, where to go next. And, if we have another election in 2028, I guess closer than that, the midterms, what do we do then? The Democratic Party has so many issues that I don't, it's a lot. I spend a lot of time thinking about these things.
Well, Trump said on the campaign trail, I'm pretty sure, that if he won, the Christians, if they voted for him, we wouldn't have to vote again. So let's hope there's an election in 2028.
It's He's doing everything he can. They're redrawing the maps,
And
in
that's
Texas. They just did
yep.
that. Yeah, he's doing everything he can to remain in office. So I don't know. Yeah, that's tough,
And that's
y'all. I don't know what we
fascism.
gonna do.
Yeah.
That's fascist. At first, I was the beginning. I was like, well, I don't know. I'm like, nah, we're here. Like, it's
No,
not
it's
a descent
100%.
into.
Yeah.
So you know the laws, but yeah.
He doesn't
Yeah.
care. He doesn't care. That's why there was a point where I had hope. I was like, Supreme Court, like, I used to look up to the Supreme Court so bad. I'm like, they're the smartest lawyers in the country. Like, they know what they're doing now. I'm like, oh,
Supreme Court, you're next. We hope 20 years. Yes.
and it's just, but I don't even think, I'm like, why are we letting 9 people decide all the laws for it? This is nuts. Like, no matter how you slice it, 9 people who can stay on there until they die is crazy. I don't understand why these people are making our choices for us. So, I mean, I love Ketanji Brown. I think she's great. I'm glad she's there. But as an institution, it doesn't really make sense.
Lifetime appointments do not seem very democratic. That is my opinion. So we need to figure that out.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's just the reality. When you get older and you get up there, you're just not with the times anymore. You're not with it. It's time to retire. Like, go sit on the beach. Like, go and let someone who's a little younger take it over. Like, go enjoy your life.
I agree. I'm like, don't you want to relax? Hang out with your grandchildren.
Literally. Well, this has been so great. And, pivoting back a little bit to your personal life, you've just come so far, and it's amazing to see. And we were wondering, just reflecting on your journey up to this point, what advice would you give to your younger self just growing up as a black girl in America?
That's a good one. Oh man. I think I would say continue to be fearless. Follow your instincts. Follow your instincts. Follow your intuition because it's pretty much spot on. Um, Listen to your family members. Listen to your mom when she says that person is not your friend, because your mom always knows. Your family member can tell. Um, yeah, and I think stay confident and lean into who you are probably a bit sooner, because there's always, everyone's always like, oh man, like if I had started doing this a year ago or 2 years ago, where would I be now, right? And so I think you just have to lean into it and be confident. But truthfully, I don't know that I would do anything really differently, because I think you have to have those harsh moments. Like when I was doing my crash out era, I think I had it a little bit better than you guys because everything wasn't recorded. Like I could do things and have these little moments, and it's not like going viral on TikTok the next day. So I felt like I could live my life a little bit more freely, because I wasn't worried about that. And so I think it's really hard now because you might be going through just a regular phase, like a rebellious phase, or just an insufferable phase, or being a bad friend or whatever. And but you can't do that because, oh, story time, like let me tell you how this person, and and now you can't just have that normal phase in life. So I don't even know how people navigate that now, because now it's very much like, publicist at all times, you got to be on every time you're out and about. Like it's kind of stressful.
It's crazy because I can agree with you. I grew up a little unsupervised with a cell phone, so I was crashing out as early as 13 on the internet, cussing people out, doing all sorts of stuff, saying whatever came to mind. And so I'm like, you know what? If I ever get to a point where I'm very visible publicly and something comes out, I'm sorry in advance. I said what I said, but I am who I am today. So that's just that.
Exactly. No, it was almost like a social experiment, because why did kids have access to social media to, publicize all of their thoughts and inner monologues to the world? It's probably not the best, most ethical thing. But you know
No.
what? It made you who you are today, and that's what matters. So, yeah.
It did. So it's okay.
Yeah.
But you just gotta be like Tyler. I feel like I think she was the one who had like no footprint. I'm like, you had a footprint, but pretty much everything was deleted by the time she blew up. So I'm like, or an Ice Spice too, another one.
Really?
I'm like, now I know you were on Twitter. Oh yeah, their whole
They had
thing was
burners.
like, there's nothing. They had burners,
Yeah.
but everything once they popped, people
Yeah.
were going back and trying to search. It's like, oh, you had an account.
They had their team go in and scrub the internet. They said, dark web, get in there, delete it all. I didn't really have a digital footprint. I wasn't really online like that. Like I think I got an Instagram in like 8th grade, but I didn't really even have a smartphone until like my freshman year of high school. Like I was outside, enjoying like nature, not outside. But yeah, so it's just funny to hear, like even Brad and I are only 2 years apart, but his generation, I feel like, is very different. Like we're still Gen Z, but like the younger Gen Zs are just, they're so much more attached to technology. And I've seen how it like alters your communication and just like everything that your decision making and things. So very fascinating case study.
It is. I feel bad because they can't, I don't know, they can't really do anything. Like
Yeah.
that's when you talk about people don't dance in the club anymore, or just whatever, all types of stuff. You just don't want to you don't want to go viral for it. So,
Yeah.
or you just don't care. You lean into it. I feel like that's the other option.
Yeah, that's so great. Well, yeah, just wrapping up. This has been amazing talking to you, and I just really appreciate you being generous with your time. I know we went way over, and so we're so grateful. But lastly, this is a question we ask all of our guests, just about how your identities influence you. I know you kind of already spoke on that a little bit, just growing up as a Black girl in America. But could you please give us a little bit of insight into what does Blackness mean to you?
Oh my gosh. It's multifaceted. There are so many different ways to be Black and approach Blackness. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about growing up around a lot of different types of Black people. Like we talk about the Black excellence Blacks, we talk about the bougie brunch, or people might be more hood, a little bit, more street, whatever. But you can also be an amalgamation of all of those things, and the culture is just beautiful. It means line dancing, or pinning money on your shirt, or whatever, sitting together on the porch, or talking about your experiences, or making fun of each other, but you know that I'm only making fun of you because I love you and I'm close, and we can kind of go back and forth, just a whole different language that you might not even understand. You might be like, oh, do y'all hate each other? It's like, no, this is how we talk. Like we just get on each other, we drag each other a little bit. And so for me, it's just something beautiful, that many try to duplicate but never can quite get. And I think that's something I love about being Black, because we can just tell right away, like, something's a little off there. Like, you didn't quite use that word correctly, or the way that you structured that sentence together doesn't make sense. Like, you're definitely trying to imitate something. And so just clocking it. So yeah, it's kind of difficult, because I think Black is so, you can be so, it can be so different, and you can approach it so differently. You don't have to just be one thing or talk a certain type of way or look a certain way. So that's, but at the same time, there's still a culture, right? Even though we're all so different and interested in different things, there's still kind of like this cultural phenomenon that flows. Even if I grew up in Atlanta, you grow up somewhere else, like far away from me, we'll still have these commonalities. And I think that's just amazing.
Thank you so much for that. That was a beautiful way to describe it. I love that you mentioned we can kiki and, drag each other for fun. And some people might not understand it, but like, we get it. We get it. We get what we're doing. And I just love that sense of camaraderie we have in the Black community. And so just thank you so much for, spending your time today to talk to us. I feel like this has been like such a great conversation, and I know it's going to be really insightful. And I feel like we got into so many different things, and I just know this is going to be really valuable for our audience and those who are tuning in. So thank you so much. And you're just amazing. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. You all are so, oh my gosh, intelligent. I love this conversation. You got me thinking. And so this was really fun. I'm so glad you invited me on, and I cannot wait for the episode to drop.
Thank you so much. You are the first lawyer that we've ever had. We've had other folks that went to law school, but you're like the first actual lawyer. And so, yeah, it's been really cool just to learn about, everything that you've overcome and how you're just continuing to thrive. So, yeah, we continue to hope to be in community with you. We try to do that with all of our guests, even now that we've expanded outside of Seattle. We know you're in Georgia, but at some point, maybe we'll see each other in person, and we'll make a plan to do that. And so, yeah, thank you.
No problem.
Yes.
Thanks, y'all.
Take care. Thank
Bye.
you so much. We deeply appreciate your support as we work to uplift the Black community and explore our unique experiences within the Black diaspora on Identity Unboxed.
Authenticity is your guide to cast an impact on the world that you will be proud of. Signing off with pride, Tiana.
And Brad.
Thank you so much.